What up, though? I am Fontaine the Titan, and we about to get into Bill Gates and Harvard University blocking out the sun, right? I don't know if y'all know about this, but Bill Gates and Harvard University then collaborated to develop a plot scheme or whatever you want to call it to block out the rays of the sun. And I'm going to get to why they say they doing it, and I'm going to get into why they really are doing it on the spiritual side of the game, on the esoteric side of the game, on the occult side of the game. And as I say, occult only means hidden, so don't be afraid when I say the word occult, all right? So first of all, in order for me to break it down the right way, we're going to use the Law of Correspondence out of the book, the Kabalion, we have right here. Of course, I got to bring all my books back. We also got my favorite Ancient Future book by Wayne Chandler, once again, to bring some more heavy information to tie it together. And got this book right here, Sacred Geometry and Spiritual Symbolism, The Blueprint of Creation by Donald B. Carroll. This book, we go get into this one as well. It's going to get really, really dope. And so sit back, relax, enjoy this here, because this is about to get real deep. We're going to get into some sacred geometry, some Bible astrology. We're going to get into a lot of cosmic stuff. We're going to bring everything together. We're going to mix it right on in real smooth, like a smoothie, with your little kale and lemon juice and all that stuff, whatever you put in y'all smoothies. We gonna have it nice mixed in together. So it may seem like it's have no connection at all at first, but once I start breaking it down and you see exactly what I'm talking about, then you're gonna be like, I get it. So just keep on watching and you're gonna be like, I get it, right? So before we get into exactly this article off Forbes website, Forbes magazine, the website, that's where I got the article about Bill Gates and them blocking the sun. Before we get into that and start deciphering that, right? Let's break down what the law of correspondence is, right? Okay, so the principle of correspondence, right? As above, so below. As below, so above. It says this principle embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life. The old Hermetic axiom ran in these words, as above, so below, as below, so above, and the grasping of this principle gives one the means of solving many a dark paradox and hidden secrets of nature, right? It says these planes are beyond our knowing, but when we apply the principle of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us, right? The principle is of universal application and manifestation on the various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law. The ancient Hermetics considered this principle as one of the most important mental instruments by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view of the unknown. Its use even more tore aside the veil of Isis to the extent that a glimpse of the face of the goddess might be caught. Just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables man to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in his observatory, so a knowledge of the principle of correspondence embodies man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. Studying the nomad, he understands the archangel, right? So basically what they're saying is that the more you study here and everything that you can touch physically and all of that, the more you can know about what's going on the outside. And when they're talking about the planes of existence here, they're saying there's 3 planes of existence. And I'm gonna go in. It says the great second Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is a harmony, agreement, and correspondence between the several planes of manifestation, life and being. The truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source, and the same laws and principles and characteristics apply to each unit or combination of units of activity as each manifests its own phenomenon upon its own plane. It says, for the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considers that the universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena known as the three great planes. And they are the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. Now, we're not about to get into each plane. Just know that at this point, each plane is divided into 7 subplanes, and that's a whole nother discussion. We're not even going to get into trying to break down all the planes. We go get into the as above, so below aspect, as within, so without. Everything that's within us is also on the outside of us, and we got all of these correspondences. And if you don't think the correspondence is a big part of what's going on and the law of correspondence don't apply, have to use the bathroom real bad, have to go pee real bad, and then see somebody with an open fire hydrant and then that water shooting out, and see how you feel. Then you come back and tell me if correspondence don't apply, right? So that's the basics of the law of correspondence, but we're about to break it down deeper so you can get a further understanding what I mean by the law of correspondence, right? And I'm going to use this Bill Gates article to explain that, right? So let's get into this thing, right? Because this is what this is all about. Why they are really trying to block the rays of the sun. But I'm going to go into why they say they're doing it first, all right? Okay. So it says, Harvard blocking sun, right? Concept uses balloon. They say the Harvard scientists will launch a maneuverable balloon into the stratosphere above the United States southwest region. The balloon will then programmatically release calcium carbonate into the stratosphere. The initial test is slated to begin spring of 2019. So yeah, basically they already doing it. Okay? It says the scientists are basing the working concept on past volcanic eruptions, namely the massive eruption of Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991. Pinatubo's eruption blew 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere. As you likely guessed, the sulfur dioxide formed a coating around the Earth and caused a universal lowering of the Earth's core temperature. Specifically, the Earth cooled 0.5 degrees Celsius as a result of this sulfur dioxide coating. So they saying they about to try to imitate what's going on with the planet, or whatever it is that they got going on. They trying to imitate it, right? So dig this here. It says, I'm going to skip down a little bit. It says, a group of Harvard scientists plan to tackle climate change through geoengineering by blocking out the sun. The concept of artificially reflecting sunlight has been around for decades, yet this will be the first real attempt at controlling Earth's temperature through solar engineering, right? The project, called Stratospheric Control Perturbation Experiment, or for short they call it SCOPEX, will spend $3 million to test their models by launching a steerable balloon in the southwest U.S. 20 kilometers into the stratosphere. It says, once the balloon is in place, it will release small particles of calcium carbonate. Plans are in place to begin the launch as early as the spring of 2019. The basis around this experiment is from studying the effects. All right, it goes on. It says that again. It goes into the methods of how they trying to do this, the different methods. It says the first two methods are actively discussed and implemented in various degrees. So they go into how they are spraying chemtrails, right? And they go into all of that stuff. But basically, what it says here, it says the Harvard research team intends to spray tiny chalk calcium carbonate particles into the stratosphere in a controlled experiment. Computer models can only go as far as in predicting the impacts of geoengineering technique. It is time for a real-world test. With funding in part by Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, the Harvard team will begin to answering the remaining questions as early as spring of 2019. It says, while the potential negative effects are not fully characterized, the ability to control Earth's temperature by spraying small particles in the stratosphere is an attractive solution, right? Largely due to this cost. The recent Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, report estimated that the continual release of particles into the stratosphere could offset 1.5 degrees of warming for $1 billion to $10 billion per year. When comparing these costs with the global reduction in fossil fuel use of carbon sequestration, the method becomes very attractive. The scientists, government agencies, and independent funders of this technology must balance the inexpensive and effectiveness of this method with the potential risks of global collapse, weather conditioning, and drought. Ultimately, the only way to fully characterize the risk is to conduct real-world experiments, just as the Harvard team is embarking on. All right? And this article was by Trevor Nance. He's a PhD geologist, founder of Science Trends. He's a contributor for Forbes and an explorer. And that's his information of where exactly this came from, right? So what you got to understand is that they have geoengineering. Now they're going into solar engineering, right? They try to blame everything on the so-called greenhouse effect, which is saying that all the carbon dioxide and everything from the cars is causing the Earth's temperature to rise, right? And they're saying with the Earth's temperature to rise is going to become unsustainable for everybody to be able to survive, and they got to lower the temperatures. And of course, you've probably seen all the stuff about them lowering the emissions on gas cars and trying to build electric cars, but they fighting electric cars, and it's a big war, a political war going on with how they're going to lower the temperature of the planet, right? However, what makes them think that they have the power and authority to just lower the temperature of the planet, right? So you got to start thinking about some things in a different type of context. Like who gives people, if you had as much money as Bill Gates, you yourself personally, and you just said to yourself, like, hey, y'all, I want to just go block out the sun. You know what they'll say? They'll say no, they'll put a stop to you and all of this other stuff. So they got Harvard University involved. They got Bill Gates involved. But you got to know that these orders is coming from up higher to try to do something like this. Because if it was anybody else regular to say that this is what they were going to do, it'll be a problem. You know, it's a problem with us doing anything around here. But somebody just come up with the bright idea and says, we're going to block the rays of the sun, right? So in my studies and everything that I got figured out going on, I'm showing that it goes way deeper than them just wanting to block out the rays of the sun to cool the planet. Because you got to understand why they would even think to do something like that, okay? So we're going to use the law of correspondence to start figuring out a few things, right? So what you got to understand is that in the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? So let me give you some examples so you can understand, right? As a human body, human being or whatever, we got 4 stages of our life cycle, right? We got our birth, our adolescence, our adulthood, and death. That's 4, right? What else comes in 4? You have the 4 seasons, right? You have spring, summer, winter, fall, right? That comes in 4s as well, right? In your sleep cycle, right? And in the brain waves, you got your beta waves, alpha waves, delta waves, and theta waves, right? So all of these are correspondences, right? And your brainwave activity corresponds with your consciousness, right? So just understanding those small aspects of how things go, we can only assume, no, not even assume, but we can conclude that from what we experience here is also happening above. So if we have our own consciousness that goes through cycles and our own life that goes through cycles, a repetitive cycle, spring, summer, winter, fall, our brain waves when we sleep, our life and death experience here, then you gotta conclude that the cosmos goes through its same rotation, right? As above, so below, as within, so without. But let us break this down a little bit further, okay? We're going to get into this ancient future book once again. And this is really, really dope, y'all. This is really dope. What I told y'all, this information in this book break down a whole bunch of stuff. So what y'all got to understand is that, you know, we think it's the year 2019, okay? We've been thinking it's the year 2019 because guess what? That's what they told us. What we don't understand as we go through life is that they literally changed time, right? So this new calendar that we go by is called the Gregorian calendar, right? The Gregorian calendar by Pope Gregory back in the day. It used to be the Julian calendar and so on. What they did was they manipulated the calendar and basically started everything from zero, right? So that zero date was based on the alleged birth of Jesus Christ, right? As the savior of the world. But we gonna get into that in a second, right? So they used to call it BC, before Christ. Now they call it BCE, before Common Era. So you got to notice that they even changed their little stuff going on because they understand how people are becoming more cognitive of how they actually manipulated everything, right? So they call it BCE, everything before zero, everything after up until 2000. Now we in 2019. I know y'all remember some years back they came out with the movie 2012 and they showed the world coming to an end. They had everybody all scared and nervous out there going buying water, thinking that something was going to happen, and everybody lost their mind, right? Lost their mind out here, not understanding that the year 2012, December the 21st, 2012, was nothing but a cosmic shift in the cosmos, right? And how will we know all of this? Because they're using, if you're into the ancient stuff, you're using that calendar. You're using the ancient Mayan calendar, the ancient Egyptian calendars, and all of that to show what was going on tens of thousands of years before. See, they got everybody thinking that life on this planet, if you're a biblical person, that everything started 6,000 years ago. But even the pyramids have been carbon dated to be over 30,000 years old at least. So what we got to understand is our conception of time has been thrown way off. So they put all of these little kinks in the game to throw us off and have us thinking out of our minds on what's really going on. So we got to get our minds back on the cosmic scale of how things going on. So I'm going to break down to you what that 2012 thing was all about and give you some more information so we can start putting all of this together, right? So we're going to put this together, and what it was called the Great Year, okay? It says, the Great Year was known to all civilizations of the ancient world, though we may say conclusively that it was discovered and utilized first in Kemet and India. The Egyptians employed it as a great celestial timetable, predicting events long before they unfolded. Like so many universal phenomena locked into the mythos of ancient wisdom, the Great Year expresses itself macro and microcosmically, right? So the macro and the micro. That's as above, so below. Microcosmically, the Great Year is determined by what is called the precession of the equinoxes, which operates in accord to the 23.5-degree tilt of the Earth's axis. This 23.5-degree tilt gives the illusion of steadiness to the Earth as it rotates and revolves around the sun. As a result of the illusion of a reeling Earth, the magnetic North Pole portrays a slow retrograde circle around the North Pole of the elliptical. Now, I ain't about to get into whether the Earth is flat or round and none of that stuff. I'm just going by the information that was provided, and this is, ancient information as well that could be looked up. You got some on the ancient side of the game that also can show you that the Earth was flat or whatever, but I ain't going to get into that. But we going with the information that's right here, right? But we'll continue. It says the positions of the equinoxes gradually change to counterclockwise motion, and the polar star is supplanted for another. All right, now here we about to get into the timetables now, right? It says the time given for Earth's axis to complete this cycle is 25,920 years. That's one cycle. That's one great year, 25,920 years, right? So this is what you got to understand why you're thinking it's 2019. We in a whole nother cosmic calendar that we talking about now. It says the Egyptians divided this astronomical event into 12 partitions, each represented by a constellation usually symbolized by an animal. You know what these 12 are. It says from these constellations, we derive the 12 signs of the zodiac. So everybody out here wondering, talking about, oh, I'm a Leo, I'm a Gemini, and all of that. See, this is your correspondence right here. You got the 12 months of the year, the 12 zodiac signs. You got Jesus followed by the 12 disciples. You got to start putting everything together so you can get a full understanding of what's going on, right? It says each zodiacal constellation governs 30 degrees. Moving through a constellation at the rate of 72 degrees per year, we find the precession circle represents 1 month of 2,160 years in the great year. And each month constitutes an age. Now keep that in mind, that word age, right? It says when 2,160 is multiplied by 12, one arrives at 25,920 years, right? So each zodiac sign that we go into cosmically is 2,160 years, right? So they was talking about, right, we going into the age of Aquarius. That's what they're talking about. We're talking about us leaving the age of Pisces, going into the age of Aquarius. But we're going to get more on that one in a second, right? It says, the macrocosm manifestation of the great year synthesizes the astro mythos with the essential dynamics of human evolution, both physically and spiritually, okay? It says the great year in its microcosmic expression concerns itself with the ages of planetary as well as individual change, creating geologic, social, and religious tribulations of the period or the age. It sets the stage for the drama in which humanity must endure, okay? So, now I should have brought me some water, man. Just need some water around this joint, right? Hold on, but let's continue this. Let's go ahead and finish this up, right? It says, in its macrocosmic expression, the principal focus of the great year is the spiritual evolution of mankind. The spiritual evolution of mankind, right? It says, as human beings, we are by design genetically coded to the unremitting rhythms of this grand cycle, right? So everything has a rhythm. Spring, summer, winter, fall. Birth, adolescence, adulthood, death, right? Your brain waves while you go to sleep. When we woke, we in beta, then we go to alpha, then we go to delta, then we go to theta. Everything has a rhythm, right? And in these rhythms are a correspondence to everything else. But watch these other correspondences that break down, right? It says, the following example will show how intrinsically bound the human race is to the astrobiological sequences of the great year. It says the average rate of respiration in human beings is 18 breaths per minute. In an hour, the average, of course, is 18 times per 60 minutes, right? Which equals to 1,080 breaths. In a period of 24 hours in one day, the average is 1,080 times 24, which equals 25,920, the same time period of the great year, right? As above, so below. See, you got to watch all of this stuff. This is stuff that you never thought about, never put together. And, you know, you got some people, that's why these books is important, because a lot of the stuff you're not thinking about and it's been put together all for you. All you got to do is put the pieces of the puzzle together for yourself and you will start seeing what's going on, right? But let us continue. It says, as we breathe 18 breaths per minute, our average pulse rate is 72 times a minute, right? 72 is also the time it takes to transit one zodiacal degree in any of the 12 constellations. 72 pulses per minute equals 5,320 in an hour. As stated at the outset of this chapter, the number of years in the Kali Yuga, our current epoch, is 432,000 years. So it's even more cycles that go beyond the cycle that we own. I'm just talking about the great year, but they got even bigger cycles that go around there. It says, though these correlations are fascinating, the indispensable theme is that all the numbers when added equate to 9. In the science of ancient Egyptian numerology and sacred geometry, the numeral 9 was regarded as one of 4 omnipotent primordial numbers. It represents humanity, the end of cycles, and how these two aspects of creation engage in one another, right? And you see how important the number 9 is, because even when you're pregnant for 9 months, right? So that's the number of life, and you know, it gets really, really deep, right? It says the macrocosmic inferences of the great year in our existing period is that the age of darkness will give way to an age of light, right? So this is where it really starts to come together. It says that at this, the end time of the prophecies, those prophecies foretold by the visionaries of ancient Kush, India, Egypt, and Americas, this was the higher significance of the great year as understood in antiquity. That is a cosmic trigger to shift humanity from separation into oneness. The union of starlight with the matter and the marriage of spirit with self, right? So what you got to understand is we all run around here like we just these physical bodies, right? And we have really no concept of that we are more than these physical bodies. We are light beings from a higher source, right? And that higher source is out there within us, right? So as above, so below. So we got to understand that we are not just an individual, right? So when you break it down like this, right, you have billions, trillions of whatever cells in your body, right? So in the wave particle experiment, if you have studied that, you will be able to see that electrons, right? Electrons have their own consciousness. And what are cells and everything made of? Everything is built out of electrons. So each individual electron has its own consciousness, right? So from that correspondence, our mind has its own consciousness, which controls the electrons around us, right? Which we are in the great mind of the all, as they say, which as above, so below. So everything has its own levels of consciousness, right? So these laws of correspondence do transpire into each level, even as you can see through the human body, right? But so what they do is they hide a lot of this stuff in the books that you read every single day, okay? Right? So that's what I'm going to get into this book right here. This book, Sacred Geometry and Spiritual Symbolism, The Blueprint for Creation, right? Now this book got a whole bunch of dope stuff in it. It explains how the insides of the pyramids of Giza, the chambers and all of that is built, how the inside of your brain is, right? And we already know that the pineal gland, pituitary gland, and the hypothalamus gland correlates to the positions of where the pyramids of Giza are in Africa, right? And then those correlate to the Sirius star constellation, Orion's belt. Those 3 stars, so as above, so below. So you can see it in the cosmos, you see it on Earth, and then you see it right here inside of your brain. And like I say, it goes even further. They break down so much symbolism in this book and how everything correlates, right? So, but I'm not going to talk about that portion of it, right? I'm going into the last chapter of this book, which is called Coming of Age, right? And you're talking about going into the new age. Remember, I told you, keep in mind what an age is, right? And this is really dope. This is stuff that a lot of people ain't never put together. And once you hear it, you be like, oh, it makes sense. So this right here, this specific part is some Bible astrology for you, right? Because there's a lot of astrology in the Bible. It's a lot of hidden codes, meanings, and everything in the Bible as well. And when I read this book, it's like, oh, okay, the blueprint for creation. And it's like, I knew they was going to do this, right? But this is, you know, what you probably didn't realize what was going on as well. But they about to break some stuff down for you right here. It says, author Ralph Ellis puts forth an interesting interpretation concerning Egyptology and the Bible. His premise is that when one sees the terms bull and cattle or sheep and rams used in the Bible or in Egyptology, he should interpret them as references to the constellations of Taurus and Aries, right? So we know this part of the Bible when Moses come with the 10 commandments and tell them to stop worshiping the calf and all of that. That's was symbolizing the age of Taurus going into the age of Aries, right? So the symbolism in the Bible is there. If you're reading the Bible literally, you're going to miss all of this dope cosmic stuff that they really trying to explain to you in story form, right? So it continues. It says, he states that in ancient times, the changes from the age of Taurus to the age of Aries created a civil war in Egypt and created an exodus, hence the word Exodus. That's why that book in the Bible is called Exodus, of the Hyksos Israelites, or the Shepherd Kings, from the then ruling Egyptian calf worshippers. The Judaic kingdom that sprang from them brought forth the Jesus guy, right? So they about to get into Jesus, right? So whether you believe that he was a physical being or not, this is the correspondence that goes along with that story of Jesus. So I'm not here to debate whether he was a real person that walked the earth, or whether it's a slavery system or religion or whatever. That's not my point here. Dig this information, right? Because once you take in this information, you might start looking at things a different way. As you know, the Bible is allegorical, and we sing from the book Ancient Future on the cosmic scale of how the world and the cosmos work, on that scale of the calendar, right? So we know the Gregorian calendar that they put forth is some garbage, but let's go into what they got to say about all of this, right? It says, Jesus, who began as the divine shepherd and shepherd of men, but as the constellations proceeded into the Piscean age, became a fisher of men, right? As the Roman Catholic Pope is known today. So y'all see how they putting themselves in place of how things are supposed to go, right? It says the fascinating aspect of this, if we continue this interpretation, is that the next age we are on the verge of, or have already begun, depending on different sources, is the age of Aquarius, right? It says Aquarius is the water bearer or cup bearer, right? Right? It says, not only did Jesus in the Bible make the transition from Aries to Pisces, but he also prepared for the Aquarian age. The cup at the Garden of Gethsemane and the cup at the Last Supper come to mind. Then look at the actual story of Aquarius, right? It says, this story is where a perfect man, Ganymede, or however it's pronounced, don't give me the line, is seen by God or Zeus and taken to Mount Olympus by an eagle. The eagle is the constellation Aquila, all right? It's said to be his cupbearer, right? And the Catholic Online Encyclopedia states that the eagle is a symbol of Jesus Christ. Oddly enough, the Mayan have an astronomical legend of their hawk constellation. So we're going into the Mayan calendar. It says they identify as Aquila, the constellation, lifting the Southern Cross, aka the Thieves' Cross, right? Out of the ocean in April and placing it back in October, which corresponds to their planting and reaping seasons, okay? So all of this is going from ancient times and correlates to everything that they put into the Greek mythology, which also goes right into the Bible and how that was written in the same form, okay? Because it's nothing but mythology on top of mythology. In the original mythology, we look at those as stories, as in fiction, but it's the same thing. It's all an analogy and personification in order to be able to explain what couldn't be explained. And they explain it in story form, but you got to know the underlying meaning of what these stories are, right? So if you're looking at every story as this an actual thing that's going on, and these was actually people or actual gods or whatever, then you're going to miss the esoteric value, right? And the esoteric value is what lets you know about yourself, what lets you know about the cosmos, lets you know about the world, right? But let's continue, right? It says there is a similarity in Luke's gospel where Jesus, who is Aquila, that they had in Mayan and so on, Jesus tells the good thief, right, which is the Southern Cross, he will be in paradise with him that day. Biblically, the crucifixion of the Jesus Christ and his words to the good thief on the cross occurred during the same season. It says, the following line of thought author Ralph Ellis inspired, and I pursue onward into the synoptic gospels of the Bible, specifically Jesus' prediction and directions to his disciples to seek a water bearer and follow him to the place of the Last Supper in preparation for the transition. Now, I'm not about to read all these Bible verses in here, but I'll give you the Bible verses to look up. You got Matthew chapter 26, verses 17 and 18. You got Mark chapter 14, verses 13 through 17. And then you got Luke chapter 22, verses 8 through 13, right? So those, they all basically say the same thing, but I'll read out Luke's one just so you can know exactly what it says, and you can go back and read them for yourself and get the esoteric value, okay? It says, "Go and prepare us the Passover that we may eat. And they said unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare? And he said unto them, Behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth. Now keep in mind, every zodiac is called a house as well, right? So that's also the correlation, you know. It says, And ye shall say unto the good man of the house, The master say unto thee, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he shall shew you a large upper room, right? Furnished there make ready. And they went and found as he said unto them, and they made ready the Passover, right? Which is the Passover is going into the next phase, the next age, right? That's why they say Jesus is only be here to the end of the age. We talking about the age of Pisces going into the age of Aquarius, right? So let's break this down harder and deeper, right? It says, whereas Matthew is more enigmatic, Luke and Mark specifically instruct the disciples to seek a man bearing a pitcher of water. If I may, the gospel cupbearer, the water bearer is Aquarius, the perfect human in attunement with God, the birthright Jesus told mankind we would have. It should be noted that author Gordon Strachan has also come to the same conclusion. So there's also other books that say a lot of this other stuff and break it all the way down. We're going to get those books and break them down eventually, right? So it says, signs in the sky and astrological constellations, along with other constellations and alignments, seem to be playing a significant role. This type of role can be seen from the earlier discussions of the polar triangle of stars that occurred around 10,500 BCE, right? It says the Gospel of Luke in the New Testament wrote of signs in the sky. Much attention has been brought upon the rare galactic alignment that has occurred during a period that includes the 21st of December 2012. So it all adds up to the age of Aquarius shifted into now, right? It says this is when the center of our galaxy, then our sun, then the earth will be in such a position of alignment. Mayan expert and author John Major Jenkins states in his book Maya Cosmogenesis 2012 that the Mayans saw this alignment as a 26,000 biological unfolding. Further, that the center of the galaxy was the source of creation. This mysterious galactic center is also seen as a source of our biological unfolding by author Andrew Collins in the Cygnus Mystery due to cosmic rays, right? And I said all that to come to this conclusion that they trying to block consciousness, right? So what you got to understand about light is light carries information, right? Everything is built off of light, photons, electrons, and we are manifested in the most physical, most dense portion of our physical self, right? So that's where the law of correspondence is breaking down the three different planes, and we are on the great physical plane, okay? So everything physically, though, we can learn to correspond that as we move forward. Now, as I was saying, we go through our birth, adolescence, adulthood, and death, right? That is a cycle that can be correlated directly to if we conclude that the cosmos is going to do the same thing, right? So if the cosmos is on the cusp of a rebirth and the people who control the world know this, why wouldn't they try to block out the rays of the sun? Because they know that the light from the sun is going to be receiving the light from the constellation Aquarius is going to get filtered down through us, right? So everybody is wondering why, wow, it's so many people waking up now. It's so many people that's getting up on the knowledge. It's so many people that's doing all types of great things out here. Well, what we got to understand is that this is a natural progression of our own consciousness. As above, so below. So we are naturally waking up. And they're trying to block these rays from the sun to try to stop it. That is the point. Bill Gates, Harvard University, and everybody above them who have put this plot together are the same people who sponsor your fluoride in your water, the chemtrails being sprayed out here, the GMOs in your foods. And they're telling you all of this stuff in order to try to give you mentally outside of yourself. But the thing about it is, they've been putting fluoride in the water. It has not stopped us. They've been spraying chemtrails. It has not stopped us. Nothing that they're doing is stopping us, right? So at best, they could try to slow it down, because if you was in power, you would try to do the same thing, right? If you was in power and your people are naturally getting up and getting ready to start taking some stuff over, even if you can't stop it, you will do everything you can to try to slow it down. And this is their last attempt, because what else can they do at this point besides try to block out the sun? So they can try to blame it on the greenhouse effect while the earth is getting warmer. They can try to blame it on all of these automobiles and chemical plants and all of that stuff. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. When you start studying history, you will see that we have gone through plenty ice ages and warming and cooling of the earth. The same way we go through plenty seasons every single year. And we go through our spring, our summer, our autumn, and our winter. So we have to conclude at this point that the cosmos is doing the same thing. Spring is here. The age of Aquarius is here. Folks are starting to wake up naturally. The same way the plants and everything outside naturally grows in the springtime. You don't have to water a plant when it's outside. It's going to do what it's due based on the light from the sun. And its genetic codes are automatically going to allow it to do what it's supposed to do. The same thing with the human beings. Yeah, we are existing and growing consciously, like we're supposed to do naturally. And what they're trying to do is, by spraying all of that stuff to block the sun and chemtrails and all of that, is basically stop us from receiving the natural information that we're supposed to get to grow consciously. Because once we grow consciously, they won't be able to stop us at all. Their time will be up. Just like the age of Pisces is transferring to the age of Aquarius. So if you read the Bible, it says that Jesus will be here to the end of the age. What age is that? He was the representation of the age of Pisces. That's why he always was represented as the fisherman and had everything around that. Going into the age of Aquarius now, which is the age of consciousness, the age of enlightenment, the age of, they call it the information age here, right? Going into this age, this is expanding us. So the time now is for us to realize who we are. We're not going to be sleep any longer, right? All of this stuff that they are trying to do, these worldly people, it got us arguing over money, over stocks and bonds and borders and Donald Trump and all of this other nonsense. That's just to keep us distracted from the fact that they are out here trying to slow down our consciousness. So you can go look up that article and tell me what you think. You know, after you read it and you see what's going on, do you agree with somebody out here trying to block the sun for whatever reason? Because even if their reason is a greenhouse effect and the geoengineering and they got to do something about it, right? Even if that is their reason, why block the rays of the sun? Wouldn't there be some other logical explanation to be able to figure out something here on the plane and the planet that we live in to try to stop that, if that's what's the case? No, they're using that as an excuse. They're using that as a underlying reason to really stop what's really going on, which is to stop the growth and the natural consciousness that's been recorded throughout history with the great year and the great calendar. If you're going to look into Egyptian and ancient Mayan and all of these other cultures, they have a totally different understanding of how the world works, right? So we got to get into these other understandings so that we can get out of being Americanized, as I call it, growing up in America and being taught certain things and that everything we taught in school is the right things that we getting taught. And ain't none of this stuff really the right things as far as helping us spiritually grow and understanding who we are, our divine spark, and where we are in our consciousness and growing, okay? So, hope y'all got all of the information that needed to be gotten out of this, because it's very, very deep. It's very, very powerful, and it's helping to really strengthen. I know it strengthens myself when I find out all this, because then I understand that everything that they got going on in the world, it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop us. If the fluoride in the water ain't stopped them by now, it's not going to stop them. If the chemtrails that they've been spraying ain't going to stop us, it's not going to stop us now. They can spray as much as the sun as they want to, but it's still not going to stop the fact that we are going to raise up automatically based on the rhythm, and we're going to get into the principle of rhythm as well. But based on the rhythm and the correspondence, it's nothing that they can do. These laws are pre-written in how things go, right? That's just like them saying we gonna stop summertime from happening. How? How can they stop summertime from happening? That's what they basically saying they're going to do. They're trying to stop a cosmic season? That don't even make sense. So, everybody, like, subscribe, share this video. Hope y'all got great knowledge out of it. And with that being said, keep raising yourselves up. Successful, peaceful, prosperous, and healthy. Peace.